Good evening to all of you at home. Luke Glidden here live in Washington, D.C. with your Look at Sports. Thanks for joining me. Now, if you're a Duke Blue Devil fan, you've got to be feeling pretty good as you are just one win away from reaching the Final Four, but unable to do that, Duke is going to have to top a very, very good Michigan State team in Tom Izzo. The Blue Devils and the Spartans will go toe-to-toe tomorrow afternoon inside Capital One Arena. Now, this was a matchup circled on that March Madness bracket ever since Selection Sunday, and it's nearly here. Coming up after the break, less than 3 minutes, here from inside that Spartan locker room and how they plan to stop Zion Williamson. Good luck with that. Welcome back, everyone. Luke Glidden live here in Washington, D.C., the site of the Elite Eight matchup between Duke and Michigan State. And speaking of the Spartans, they've been cruising along throughout the tournament, at least up to this point, beating all of their opponents by at least double digits. Now, I think the key in this matchup will come down to the health of Cam Reddish if he's able to play, and Duke's three-point shooting as a whole. Yeah, Pat, you know, whether people think Duke should be here or not in the Sweet 16 after that wild finish against UCF, they still are in large part thanks to freshman phenom Zion Williamson. In fact, like you just mentioned, a big honor as he earned the Wayman Tisdale Award as the National Freshman of the Year, and it was certainly well-deserved. Zion was the nation's only player to average at least 20 points and shoot at least 65% from the field. No doubt he is a big reason why the Blue Devils are here in Washington, D.C., fighting for a spot in the Elite Eight. But first, they'll take on Virginia Tech tomorrow evening at around 9:40 p.m. And be sure to keep it right here on WFMY News 2 in the next few moments, as we will hear much more from inside that Duke locker room coming up during sports. Hey, Pat, it's just another likely story at this point, right? Another weekend of March, another matchup for the Duke Blue Devils, this time in the Sweet 16, although I think none of us have forgotten how they got to this point, edging out a close victory in the final seconds against UCF, which I think could have gone either way. But Duke is here in Washington, D.C. They've reshifted their focus to their next opponent in the fourth-seeded Virginia Tech Hokies tomorrow night. And this team, they had a light practice session earlier today, and they say they certainly learned from last week and will implement those changes Friday night.
Just try to play our game. I mean, last time we came out to a slow start versus them. Let them get confidence early, and trying to just play our game early and keep that going.
Duke will tip off against Virginia Tech right here inside Capital One Arena tomorrow night at 9:40 p.m. and you can watch that game right here on WFMY News 2. But for now, that's a quick look at sports. We're back after the short break.
It must have been a tough locker room after the game.
Yeah, Pat, it really was nearly dead silent as the Duke Blue Devils postseason run has come to an end, and it happened in the final seconds. And as you can see behind me, the crew is starting to pull up the hardwood as the Elite Eight has officially wrapped up here in Washington, D.C. And when you think about it, every single matchup in March for the Blue Devils came down to the final possession. But tonight, they just happened to be on the wrong end of things. And here's a look at some video after the game. The Blue Devils headed to the locker room, clearly upset about that final result. But when they had a chance to look back at the season, these men had nothing but love for this year's team.
Love every single one of these dudes on this team. I mean, they all my brothers. I don't know, I can't really put it into words how much it means to me, but I love them.
Still a fantastic season for the Blue Devils as their run comes to an end here in the Elite Eight, just like it did a year ago out in Omaha, Nebraska. But that wraps up our March Madness coverage here for the season out in Washington, D.C. It's been a ride. It's been a lot of fun, but I think it's time for a nice long nap. But reporting live one last time here inside Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., Luke Glidden, WFMY News 2.